Welcome back, everyone. I hope you're doing great and you're staying safe and healthy out there. So I thought we'd continue on working with the legs and the hips today and really pay attention to this very specific, very foundational action in the body, which we call in yoga grounding the thigh bones back. So when we ground our thigh bones back, what that does is it creates a very stable support for our spine. So we'll be looking at that in lots of different ways today. And it will then allow you to find more range of motion in your spine, in your hips, and will work towards the seated forward fold, Paschimottanasana, which can be a very, very deeply restorative pose, very restful at this time. So you can practice this in the evening or in the morning, but when we work more on forward folds, it's definitely much more of an inward focus. It's a more calming practice. So maybe you would practice this more towards the end of the day. Before we start practicing, I'd like to touch very briefly on one of the 8 limbs of yoga. Now, the 8 limbs of yoga comes from the Yoga Sutras of Patanjali. And without going into too much detail, one of the 8 limbs is dharana. Now, dharana means concentration. And for me, this is a very, very important piece of the practice. And really, when I started to understand this and experience it in my own mind, everything changed. So whether we're practicing asana, physical poses, whether we're practicing with the breath, all of these things require dharana. They require concentration. So I'm going to read just a couple of sentences here from this translation by Swami Satchitananda. It's actually one of my favorite translations. And he says, dharana is the binding of the mind to one place, object, or idea. When the chittam, or sum total of the mind, is being bound by one thing, or bound in one place, it is in dharana, concentration. In other words, in dharana you are training your mind. It is the beginning of meditation. Concentration is the beginning of meditation. Meditation is the culmination of concentration. So I want you to really bear that in mind today as we practice, no pun intended. And just notice as we practice, of course you're following on with the instructions, but notice how when you really practice following on with these detailed, skillful instructions, how what you're actually doing is practicing concentration. You are concentrating your mind in one particular place and thus training your mind to become more steady, more stable, and more still. So before we start to practice, I want you to make sure that you have 2 blocks and a blanket. If you don't have a blanket, then you can use any kind of blanket that you have. You could use a towel. Cushion won't work so much today because we're going to be rolling up the blanket. So go grab those things. If you don't have blocks, then you can stack books on top of each other. Once you've got all your props, you're going to come into child's pose on your mat. Now, as you come into your child's pose, you're going to take your knees out as wide as the mat. Bring the big toes to touch and then begin to hinge forward from your pelvis, reaching your fingertips all the way out to the top of your mat. Then resting the forehead down. Spread the fingers wide as if you're taking a downward facing dog. Slightly bend your elbows and lift your armpits up away from the mat. Soften your chest down and let your hips really sink, really descend down towards your heels. Now focus here on the breath. and begin to practice concentration, dharana. Keeping your mind very stable, very steadfast. Noticing each breath as it comes and goes. So whether it's focusing on the breath or a part of your body specifically, keeping the mind concentrated, focused and clear. Now slowly come up to your hands and knees, and as you come up to the hands and knees, I'm going to begin by moving your spine cat-cow, arching and rounding your back. Follow the breath again and let the breath lead your movement. Now this time you're going to sit back on your heels again, preparing for child's pose, but instead of going down right away, you're going to sit more upright to start. So again, have your knees as wide as the mat and touch the big toes together. Now you're going to begin to hinge forward towards your child's pose from the hips. So the pelvis starts to tilt forward on the way down. What often happens when we do child's pose is something more like this, where we're rounding in the back here, and then we're not sure why we can't get any further. It's because we're missing a very important action here in the pelvis and the legs. So, starting off upright, tilting or tipping the pelvis forward, and lengthening your spine, so doing the best you can to create this curve in your lower back as you're coming forward and down. So when it comes to forward folds, that's also something that's really important to remember, is to go forward with your chest and then down. Forward a little bit creates the length, and then we release into that space that we've created. Now again, stretch the fingertips forward and see if you can feel how that maybe has created a little bit more freedom in your child's pose. And then again, walk your hands backwards and come on up. Now you're going to grab your blanket or your towel and you're going to make a roll with this blanket. So open it up like this, place it about in the middle of your mat, and then you're going to make a very firm roll with this blanket. If it's too soft, it's not really going to be as effective as we want it to be. So try to make it as firm as possible. And then place it right in the middle of your mat. Okay, now you're going to sit on this blanket with your legs straight out in front of you. Now, usually when we sit on the blanket, we'll sit with our sit bones on the blanket, but this time I actually want you to scoot back further than that so that the roll of the blanket is actually right at the top of your hamstrings. And then you feel like your pelvis, including your sit bones, are actually hanging off the back of the blanket towards the mat. So if you were to fully let go, you would just collapse like this. So now, flex your feet and bring your fingertips behind you. Turn the fingers back and begin to press down into the top of your thighs. So this is what we call grounding the thigh bones. Now, as you begin to ground your thigh bones down into your hamstrings and into your blanket, use your fingertips to help a little bit, but see if you can feel how this action of grounding your thighs lifts up your spine. So it creates this rebounding effect. The more strength you cultivate to ground your thighs down, the more length you will find in your spine. Now, if you can maintain this grounding of the thighs, try raising your arms up. It's not easy to do, but give it a try. If it's too much, of course, you just keep your fingertips behind you and use them to give you a little bit of assistance. So, grounding the thighs, either arms up or down. Take 3 more breaths. Toes should be pointing straight up toward the sky. Press the heels down as well as the top of the thighs and reach up through your fingertips. Then slowly release your arms and come off your blanket. That's quite a lot of work. So seated poses are considered much more advanced than standing poses because they require a huge amount of strength to be able to sit with your spine in good alignment, right? Whereas when we don't have that much strength and range of motion in the legs and hips, when we sit on the floor, we tend to be like this, we collapse. Now again, the collapsing is not so much about your spine, it's about what's going on in your legs and hips, okay? So now you're going to keep your blanket on your mat, but you're going to open it back out and then fold it over once so that it's just a flat fold. Now you're going to come up and stand on your mat and you're going to put the balls of the feet on the blanket and keep the heels down on the mat, which is going to create more of a stretch in the lower legs, in the calf muscles. So now you're going to come forward and fold over into Uttanasana, standing forward fold. And for now, let's try to keep the legs straight. You can just let your arms hang, let your head hang. See if you can lift and spread your toes and press down more through your big toe mounds. Keep the breath really flowing so you're not holding your breath here at all. Push the big toe mounds down. Now keep the blanket there and step your feet back to the back of your mat to downward facing dog. Take your hands forward. Bend your knees. Now we've got 2 actions to concentrate on here. So the first one was where the blanket was at the top of the thighs, when we were grounding the thighs. So now you're going to do that here. Imagine that blanket is still there and you're going to ground the top of your thighs into your hamstrings. Then press the heels back as if you're digging your heels against the wall, keeping the knees bent for now. So just concentrating on those 2 actions by themselves. Lift the armpits up and feel the tilting or the tipping of your pelvis, lifting and broadening your sit bones. Now walk forward again to the blanket and do the same thing. Place the balls of the feet onto the blanket and fold over. Heels stay on the mat. Again, just breathe here. Let your head go. Let your arms hang. Concentrating your mind here on the sensations that you're feeling in the backs of your legs. Now, when we concentrate on the sensations, what we're practicing here is not to label them, not to label them as good or bad, but rather just noticing and observing the sensations. Now go back to downward facing dog. Walk your feet back, walk your hands forward. Same thing. Ground the thighs back into the hamstrings. So now every time I say ground the thigh bones back, hopefully that's going to make sense to you. So ground your thigh bones back into your hamstrings and press your heels back. Last time we'll walk forward to the blanket and we'll do it one more time here. Balls of the feet on the blanket, heels on the mat. Folding over, folding over here. Staying with those sensations, concentrating your mind there. Being willing to stay longer than maybe your mind wants to. When we come up with or come up against a challenging sensation in the body, often the mind just wants to run away from it, wants to get rid of it. But what we're here to practice in yoga is to learn how to stay with the challenging sensations. All right, so now come off and go back to down dog once again. Ground the thigh bones back into the hamstrings, press your heels back. And then slowly continue to press the top of the thighs back and the heels back. And this time, can you work to straighter legs? All right, now walk up to your blanket and move it off to the side. And then keep walking all the way up to your hands at the top of the mat now. Standing forward fold, Uttanasana. Some of you may feel, okay, I need to bend my knees right now. That's fine. Bend your knees. If you feel like when you get to this stage, you're rounding like this, you're hunching your back, then definitely more effective to bend the knees so you can begin to fold, hinging more deeply from your hips. If you feel you can hinge from the hips here, then maybe you can straighten your legs more. Now as you straighten the legs, can you still work from that action? Pretend that blanket was at the back of your thighs there at the top, and you're grounding your thigh bones into that blanket. Spreading the toes. Now inhale, lift your chest halfway and bring your hands to your hips. Draw your shoulders back to come all the way up to stand. Just take a couple of soft breaths here. Shake out your legs, shake out your arms. All right, now I'm going to have you stand anywhere on your mat and use your hands to feel this action. So you're going to put your hands on the back of your thighs, below your glute muscles. Unlock your knees and then just begin by pressing your thighs back against your hands. Now, if you use your fingertips, you can actually dig your fingertips in enough to feel the bones. And then you can feel the thigh bones pressing back against your fingertips. Now keep that. Keep pressing the thigh bones back against the fingertips and then lengthen your tailbone down. But don't lose that action of the thighs. So now you've got two actions going together, the thighs pressing back and the tailbone lengthening down. Now stand in Tadasana, mountain pose, and close your eyes for a moment. And feel those actions balancing each other out. Top of the thighs press back, tailbone lengthens down. Now, notice how when you keep your thighs grounded back towards your hamstrings, how does that feel in your spine? Does your spine feel collapsed? Does it feel more rounded, or does it feel much more free, much more extended, much more open? So everything we do in our practice is an exploration. We're shown an action, right? We're shown something, and then it's up to us to explore it and see what it gives us. So that, to me, is what has kept my practice interesting. It's kept me interested all these years, is that it's a constant exploration of something new. It doesn't stay monotonous, right? We're not just doing the same things over and over. Every time we come to our mat, it's a new, interesting exploration. So let's come on up and we'll take Surya Namaskar A 3 times to begin to move. So inhale as you sweep your arms out and up. Press the thighs back. Exhale, fold over and down. Inhale, lift the chest halfway and lengthen. Exhale, plank pose. Keep pressing the thigh bones back into the hamstrings. Lengthen your tailbone and then start to bend the elbows and slowly come on all the way down. Draw your shoulders back and rise up into cobra pose. Exhale, lower. And push up and back, go to downward facing dog. Now again here, ground the thigh bones into the hamstrings. Keep practicing, keep concentrating your mind on that action. And each time we get there, hopefully it feels a little bit more available to you. Press your heels back and slowly work towards straightening the legs. And then again, bend the knees, step or jump to your hands at the top of the mat. Hands to the shins as you lift and lengthen your spine. Exhale, fold. Inhale, sweep your arms out and come all the way up. Exhale and release. Let's do 2 more. Inhale, reach out and up. Exhale, Uttanasana, grounding the thigh bones back into the hamstrings. Inhale, lift the chest halfway. Exhale, plank pose. Keep pressing your thighs back. Lengthen your tailbone as you lower yourself all the way down. Draw the shoulders up and back and curl up to cobra pose. Exhale, softly lower and press back to downward dog. Bend the knees, press the top of the thighs back into the hamstrings. Keep pressing the top thighs back, and again, work slowly to straighten the legs. The heels don't have to come down. Even if it's easy for you to put your heels down, I recommend keeping your heels up a little bit and seeing if you can work more on grounding your thigh bones back and lifting your sit bones up. And bend the knees, step or jump to your hands. Hands go to the shins, lift and lengthen. Exhale, fold. Inhale, sweep the arms out to come up. Exhale and release the arms. Let's do last one together. Inhale. Exhale, fold. Inhale, lift and lengthen. Exhale, plank pose. Lower all the way down. Inhale, cobra pose. Exhale, softly lower. And push up and back, downward facing dog. Grounding the thigh bones back into the hamstrings. Lifting the armpits, and then work slowly to press your thighs back, press your ankles back. Powerful legs. Good, and walk or hop forward to your hands. Inhale, lengthen. Exhale, fold. Inhale, sweep the arms out and come all the way up. Exhale, release the arms down. Take a moment to pause here, standing in Tadasana. Top of the thighs grounding back towards the back plane of your body. Tailbone lengthening down. Grounding through your leg bones into the earth. All right, so we're going to take the two blocks and place them on each side of the mat. We'll go for the medium height. You can always raise them higher if you feel like you need a little bit more height. And we're going to take Surya Namaskar B. So with the same focus here on the thighs. So start by pressing your thigh bones back. By the way, there's never going to be a time when I don't tell you to move your thigh bones back. So just letting you know that. There's never a time when I'm going to say, okay, move your thigh bones forward. It just doesn't happen, right? This is the habit that we cultivate over years of doing this and collapsing. So what we're doing here is we're undoing that habit so that when we ground the thighs back, we maintain that lift through the spine, then we go out into our everyday lives and the body does that much more naturally on its own, okay? So always ground your thigh bones back. Now start to bend your knees, but rather than thinking about bending from the knees, I want you to think about more bending from your hips. So pressing the thigh bones into the hamstrings to sit down. Into chair pose, Utkatasana. So it's a deep hinging, deep folding from the hips. Take the arms forward, draw from the fingertips, plug them in, and raise them up alongside your ears as you keep pressing your thigh bones into your hamstrings. Now curl back with your upper back for one more breath. Then open the arms and fold forward and all the way down. Once again, Uttanasana. Inhale, lift the chest halfway. You can place hands on the shins or by the toes. Exhale, plank pose. Go through the vinyasa. It can be cobra again or upward facing dog. Slowly lower and press back to down dog. Now we're going to take the right foot forward between the hands. And then you're going to take your blocks and place them onto your mat here. Next to your right foot, underneath the shoulders. Now you're going to turn your back foot out about 45 degrees. And ground the outer edge of that back heel. Now let's see if we can ground this right thigh bone down into the hamstring here and press the inner left thigh back. Open your chest more and slowly come up, placing the hand to the top of the front thigh. Now push with your hands, keep grounding that right thigh. You can take that right hand to the top of the thigh and ground it down as you curl up. Sweep your arms up, Virabhadrasana 1. Now straighten the front leg. And with the front leg straighter, it's going to be easier to work on the back leg. So ground the outer edge of the back heel. Move the inner left thigh back. And then rebend the front leg again. See if you can sit maybe a little deeper, grounding that right thigh. Lifting the inner left thigh up. One more breath, reach up. Exhale, hands to the mat. Move your blocks to the side and go through the vinyasa. It could be cobra again or up dog. Exhale, softly lower. And press back to downward facing dog. Second side, left foot steps forward. Bring your blocks onto your mat. Turn the back foot out 45 degrees. Grounding the outer edge of the heel, open your chest and sit down a little more into the front hip. Now when you're ready, come on up. Grounding that left thigh down into the hamstring. Put your hands to the top of your left thigh and push down to rise up. Sweep your arms up and then straighten the front leg. Now square your hips a little bit more. Not saying your hips have to be perfectly square to the top of the mat, but you're working towards that direction. Ground the outer edge of your back heel. Move your inner right thigh back. Keep that going as you rebend, reground your left thigh down. And stretch up, reach up. Slowly release the hands. Go through one more vinyasa at your own pace. And all the way back, downward dog. Now stay here a little longer. Adho Mukha Svanasana, top of the thighs pressing back. Base of the shins pressing back, slowly working towards straight legs. Grounding down through your leg bones into the earth. Now bend the knees, step or jump to your hands, top of your mat. Inhale, lengthen. Exhale and fold. Inhale, bend the knees for chair pose, Utkatasana. Press the thighs back into the hamstrings, sweep your arms up. Pause here, curling back from your upper back. Inhale, stand up and stretch. Exhale, release the arms down. Good. All right. So now we're a little bit more warmed up. We're going to take our blocks again. And we're going to take a wide stance on the mat. So take your wide stance and put your blocks out in front of you, starting them off on the high side. Okay, now bring your hands to your hips here and look at your feet and really make sure they are parallel, that they're not turned out slightly. Engage your legs. Begin by grounding the top of your thighs back into your hamstrings. Roll your shoulders back and start to come forward slowly. Now find the blocks with your fingertips. Press down into the blocks and open your chest. Keep grounding the thighs back and making sure you're not locking your knees. Now either stay with this, if this is plenty, or maybe you lower the blocks. Keep going there. Maybe you lower the blocks again. So you have to decide, where is your edge? Now your edge is going to be based on whether you can maintain this action of grounding the thighs or you start rounding in your upper back. The moment you start rounding in your upper back, you've gone too far. So use the blocks to help you find where your edge is. Now for some of you may feel, okay, I can continue to work this action of grounding the thighs and fold, so then you could get rid of the blocks, bend the elbows to the side and fold all the way down. So now the crown of the head begins to reach more towards the mat once you've created maximum length in your spine first. So just like I was talking about in the child's pose at the beginning, you go forward first and then down in your forward folds. If you go down straight away before going forward, you'll tend to round your back to get there. Keep grounding the thighs back into the hamstrings. Spread the toes, grounding equally through both feet. And then inhale, slowly come on up. Now we're going to reach for the blocks and we're going to turn the right toes out. And we're going to walk the blocks all the way around to face that right foot. So now the hands with the blocks are on each side of your right foot. Square your hips to the front of the mat here, or this short edge of the mat, and look at your back foot. Your back foot should be turned out about 45 degrees. Up on the fingertips, again, you've got your blocks. So whatever height you need to start to get length in your spine. So lengthen first, see if you can ground your thighs back into your hamstrings, and then either keep the blocks here or keep lengthening forward, and again, gradually lower the blocks. I like to do it slowly and gradually, right? Even if you can come down all the way, right away, see if you can challenge yourself to actually stay up more at first. And really being more focused on the journey of getting there than getting there on its own. So then eventually you take the blocks away and you've created so much space and freedom to fold. And inhale, lift back up, reach for your blocks and walk them back around in between your feet. Turn your feet parallel. Come back to our wide-legged forward fold. Inhale, lift the chest, lengthen. Stay here in more of a tabletop position, or bend from the hips, grounding your thigh bones back and fold. And come back up slowly. Second side, reach for your blocks. Turn your left toes out and walk the blocks all the way around towards your left foot. Place the hands with the blocks on each side of the foot and turn your hips to face now the other side of the mat. Back toes are turned out about 45 degrees. Lift up, lengthen your spine first. Again, you can raise the blocks all the way up to the high side to begin. Even if you can, come all the way down. Try backing off a little bit at first. engaging the legs and moving your outer left hip back. Now stay here or continue gradually. Remember, as you fold, you're lengthening forward first, moving your chest towards your toes, and then down, forward and then down. Now, lower the blocks or get rid of them if you don't need them. Inhaling to lengthen and exhaling to fold, keeping the legs firm, the muscles in your legs strong and engaged. Come on back up, grab your blocks, and one more time walk them in between the legs, feet parallel. Okay, open the chest. Now, ground the thigh bones back. Then, just like we did when we were standing in Tadasana, lengthen your tailbone. So you feel these two actions balancing each other out. Thigh bones pressing back into the hamstrings, tailbone lengthening to engage your core. Now, with your core strong, you should be able to take both hands off the blocks at the same time and bring them to your hips. Then root down through the legs and come on up to stand. Heel toe your feet back in together and stand in Tadasana. Separate the feet slightly. Release your arms down by your sides. Thighs pressing back. Tailbone lengthening. Now keep pressing the left thigh back into the hamstring and shift your weight over toward the left foot. Grab the right ankle and place it to your inner left thigh for tree pose, Vrikshasana, without losing that action in the standing leg. You can go grab a piece of furniture or a wall if you need. Left thigh presses back. Outer right hip is dropping down. Bringing the hands together at the heart. Concentrating your mind on those actions. Top of the left thigh presses back into the hamstring. Lifting up through your spine. Dropping the outer right hip down. If you feel stable, raise the arms up alongside your ears. Reaching up through the fingertips. Then bring the hands slowly back down. And release the right foot, shaking out your feet. All right, let's stay again standing in Tadasana. Press the thighs back first, lengthen your tailbone. So that's your starting point. So always in our practice, before we start moving anywhere, we take the time to set it up, to align the body. So pause, feel. Then ground the thighs back and lengthen your tailbone. Now you're set up for success, right? If you just go onto that leg, lift the other one without really pausing first, you're not going to create a good foundation. So now begin to shift your weight over towards the right foot. Keep checking, is that right thigh bone pressing back into the hamstring? You might feel one leg is more challenging than the other. Use a piece of furniture if you need to for balance, or a wall. Put your hand there if you need it. Now keep grounding that right thigh back into the hamstring. Drop your outer left hip down and bring your hands together at your heart. If you feel stable, raise the arms up. Keep the mind concentrated on those actions. Right thigh back, outer left hip descending. Now bring the hands down and release the left foot. Shake it out. All right. So now we're going to need our 2 blocks again. I'm going to take them this time on the high side. And they're going to go at the top of the mat like this. So the 2 poses we're going to practice next are Virabhadrasana 1, which we've already practiced, Warrior 1, into Virabhadrasana 3, Warrior 3. So I'm going to have you come to Downward Facing Dog. Make sure your blocks are there, and I'll talk you through it. You can always just watch me first, maybe pause the video, watch, and then do it again after that. Okay, so Downward Facing Dog. Ground the thigh bones into the hamstrings. Press the heels back and work towards straight legs. Now, lift your right leg up behind you this time and step it through between your hands. Warrior 1, as we did before, turn the back heel out, ground the outer edge of the heel. Ground the right thigh bone down into the hamstring and press your left inner thigh back. Now come all the way up. Slowly, Warrior 1. Now reach for your blocks out in front of you and lift your back heel up so your back toes point forward. Stand strong on the right leg and lift your left leg behind you. Your blocks should be underneath your shoulders here, pushing down into the blocks to open your chest. Now wrap that outer left hip down, and can you ground the thigh bones into the hamstrings? Right thigh, press it into the back of the thigh. Left thigh, press it up to the sky. Now lengthen your tailbone and draw your belly and your ribs in so you feel more compact in the pose. One more breath here. Open the chest. And then we'll go back to Warrior 1. Big step, huge step back. Ground the outer heel. And inhale, sweep your arms all the way up. Exhale, place your hands down and step straight back to Downward Dog. Second side, lift your left leg up behind you. Inhale. Step it through between your hands. Turn the back foot out and begin to set up for Warrior 1 on the second side. Ground that front thigh bone down into the hamstring. Press your inner right thigh back. Sweep your arms up. Now reach forward towards your blocks. Find the blocks with your fingertips. Lift your back heel. Stand strong on that front leg and lift your right leg behind you. Wrap the right hip point down so your hips are square, even, and open your chest more. Now press your left thigh back into your hamstring. Press your right thigh up toward the sky. Keep opening your chest and then lengthen your tailbone. Draw your belly back towards your spine. Now big step back again, Warrior 1, Virabhadrasana 1, huge step. Ground the back heel and raise your arms. Exhale, hands to the mat. Downward Facing Dog. Take your time working towards straightening the legs fully. And then now this time you're going to come on all the way down and take Child's Pose. Knees wide, sit the hips back to the heels and slowly extend your spine forward and down. Now walk your hands backwards and come on up. All right, so we're going to come to sit on our mat now. So you'll need your blanket again or your towel. You're going to fold it up, Okay, and as you fold it up, make sure it's a good fold, a decent fold, that it's going to have some impact, right? If it's too flat, when you sit on a blanket when it's too flat, it doesn't really do anything. So make sure it's in a nice, thicker fold, and then sit on the edge of your blanket. So we did earlier, we sat with the blanket on the hamstrings on the top of the thighs. We're not doing that this time. Now we're sitting right on the edge of the blanket. So you can really clearly feel your sit bones there. Now do a manual inward rotation of the top of each thigh with your hands. Now use the heels of your hands here to ground your thigh bones down into your hamstrings and into the mat. Now feel that action of grounding the thighs and the lift up through your spine. Now bring your fingertips behind you. Give yourself a little bit of assistance with your hands, but try to do it mostly from the legs here. Tadasana, staff pose. As you ground your thighs, draw your shoulders back and lift your chest. Okay, so we're going to bring the soles of the feet together now and let the knees open for Baddha Konasana. So bring your feet in and draw the heels in close towards your pelvis. Now, same thing, bring the fingertips behind you. Press the inner edges of your feet together and let your knees float up a little bit. Now, here, can you ground your thigh bones down? Not so easy to do when we're seated in this position, right? Because we have much more limited range of motion. But just do the best you can to begin to ground down there and lift up through your spine. Press the weight to the inner edges of the feet. So big toe mounds, inner heels, push them together. Now you're going to either stay if this feels like enough already for you, or you'll catch hold of your big toes with your two first fingers. Now you'll continue to press the inner edges of the feet, but add in the outer edges as well. Pinky toe mounds and outer heels pressed together. Draw your shoulders back, squeeze your elbows in, and begin to come forward slowly. Again, remember the direction of the forward fold. We go forward first. We create as much length first, and then we go down. So inhale takes you forward, gaze forward, open your chest. Press the outer heels together. Exhale, you can come down a little bit more. Now for some of you, if you do come down a little further and you've created as much length in your spine as possible on the way down, then maybe right at the last moment you can relax your head and maybe bring the forehead down, but you're not trying to force that, of course. Now inhale to come all the way back up slowly. Take hold of the outsides of your knees and bring them together. Straighten your legs again on your mat. Maybe you give your legs a little massage if they need it. Okay, we're going to take a seated twist here. So you'll keep your your left leg straight, and you'll bend your right knee. And then you'll take that right foot to the outside of the left leg. Keep the left leg straight, or bend the left knee and bring the left heel to the outer hip. So seated twists are really great because they're very much about still opening up the hips, and you have to really use your core to move, to maneuver yourself. So the way we'll do it today is we'll leave that arm up. So place your right fingertips behind you and reach your left arm up. Now ground your thighs down. Keep your arm up, take a big inhale. Now as you exhale, twist towards the right, but leave your left arm straight up in the air and use your core strength and your breath. Ground the thighs down, inhale again, lift up, and exhale, twist again, keeping your left arm up. One more like that, inhale, reach up, exhale, twist. Now at the last moment, hook the left arm on the outside of the right leg and continue to twist. So now you've got this combination of grounding your thighs down, your core strength is to assist in twisting, balanced with the arm helping to turn the upper back and the chest. So eventually looking over the right shoulder. Then slowly unwind. And we'll switch sides. Straighten your legs out in front of you. Bend the left knee, place the left foot flat. Then take that left foot outside of the right leg. Keep the right leg straight. If you have any issue with your knee, just keep it straight. You don't want to put any stress there. Or bend that right knee and bring the heel to the outer left hip. Now, the left hand goes behind and the right arm goes up. You're going to keep your right arm up for at least 3 breaths here. Inhale. Ground the thighs. Exhale. Twist, keeping the right arm up, just using core strength. Again, inhale. Exhale, twist, using core strength. Twist a little more. Again, inhale. Exhale, all the breath out, strong core. Now bring that right arm to the outside of the left leg and continue. Again, that combination of grounding the thighs, engaging the core to twist, and then using the right arm as your leverage to turn your chest, turn your gaze, eventually looking over the left shoulder. Keeping the mind focused, practicing dharana, concentration. Now slowly unwind. Good. All right, so we've got 2 more poses here. First one, we did this last week in the class, Agni Stambhasana, fire log pose. So we're stacking the shins. So we'll start with the left shin and bring it so that it's parallel to the top edge of your mat. And then you'll stack the right shin on top of the left. Now as you stack the shins, soles of the feet facing the sides of the room, sitting right on the edge of your blanket, start with the fingertips behind you. Press down into your fingertips and the top of your thighs and lift up through your spine. Try to move the sit bones back and apart and either stay upright or start to come forward. Keeping the chest open, lengthening the spine as you come down. Again, remember that theme in your forward folds. You go forward first. It's like you're trying to get your chest to go way, way out in front of you. Then you release down. It's that forward action that gives you the space and the freedom to come down more. If you just go down, you end up compromising good alignment and just kind of, it becomes more of a constriction rather than a feeling of spaciousness and extension in the spine. And then come up slowly and switch the cross. So now left leg on top. Stack the left leg and either place the ankle on top or in front if it's too much to place it on top. Soles of the feet facing the sides of the room. Draw the shoulders back. Lift the chest. So now I'm going to turn to the side so that you can see what that might look like from the side as I come forward. So first thing first, pressing down to lift up. The lower back starts to go in and the spine then rises up. When the lower back is going out, that's when everything sinks down. So move your sacrum in and ground your thighs. Now that might be enough. So you just stay with this. If you feel you can go further, then it's that hinging from the hips that we want. Keeping the chest open as you come forward. Send your chest as far forward as you can before coming down. Think cobra pose in the upper back. And forward fold in the hips. And then slowly come on all the way up. All right, last pose, Paschimottanasana. I'll stay for the side view so you can see what's happening. Now we're going to reach for one of our blocks and place it to the side so we can grab it in a moment. Okay, so now manual inward rotation of each thigh. Point your toes straight up towards the sky. Turn the fingers to face the back of the mat and press down and back with your fingertips. Ground your thigh bones into your hamstrings and into the earth. Treat it like a standing pose. So strong, engaged legs lifting up through your spine. Now let's try this. Reach the arms up. Now keep grounding your thighs and then come forward a little bit. Keep the chest open. If it's too much, you just keep your hands down, okay? Otherwise, keep the arms up, ground the thighs more. Maybe you come forward a little more. Again, ground the thighs, reach through the fingertips, and then slowly bring the hands down on each side of your legs here, of your mat. Roll your shoulders back and send your chest towards your toes. Chest to the toes. Some of you may feel ready to grab your feet. You can do so, reaching to the outer edges of the feet. Otherwise, leave your hands here, bending the elbows, opening the chest. Now, as you come down, we're going to reach for the block. We place it between the lower legs. Lengthen the chest forward. Big inhale, and then exhale, fold. Rest your forehead onto the block. It can be higher up. You can have 2 blocks stacked, and then just relax your arms. Keep the legs strong and engaged. But just let your arms be soft now. Grounding the thighs into the hamstrings, into the ground. You might feel some shaking, some quivering in the legs. Let that happen if you feel it. Breathe into it. It's all part of the body's way of releasing what has been held there. Keep the mind concentrated on the action of grounding the thighs. See if we can stay for 5 more breaths. Now slowly come on up. Take your time. Take the block off to the side, and you can use your blanket for Shavasana. So slide the blanket back for your head and come on all the way down to lay on your back. Turn the palms of your hands up. Take as long as you need to get really comfortable and relaxed. And feel the weight of your thighs, especially at the top of your thighs, where we've been focusing on. Feel the grounding, the releasing of the thighs. The grounding of the pelvis into the earth. So your foundation becomes your anchor. Relaxing every muscle in your body now. Every bone is heavy. Let the breath go. Let the breath be natural. Can you become an observer of your body, releasing more and more deeply, more and more fully into the earth? Now begin softly to move your fingers and your toes. Let your body start to move again. Very gentle movements, easy movements. Soft, easy breath. Bending your knees, roll over to your right side and make your way slowly up to sit, sitting on your blanket or your block. Now draw the hands together in front of your heart. Lifting your heart up towards your thumbs and gently bowing your head down to your heart. And lifting your head. May your practice be a refuge for your heart and for your mind. May you practice dharana, concentration, creating stability, a sense of calm and focus, so you can be the best you can be in your life, for yourself and for others around you. Namaste. Thank you all so much. Always a pleasure to share this practice with you. Leave comments in the comment section below. Make sure you subscribe to my channel so you can get my weekly classes coming in now every week. I think next week we're going to be focusing on the core of the body to start strengthening there so we can build our way up into some back bend poses. This is a donation-based class, so if you feel that you're able to donate, I've left my PayPal and Venmo addresses below. Any small donation really is so helpful at this time, so very much appreciated. I will see you next week. Have a beautiful weekend. Namaste.